Hi everyone, today I'm going through Hongwen School P6 Prelim 2024 Section B. So this will be the open-ended section. Okay, so it will be 29 to 40. So basically first question is about digestion. Okay, so over here, Juna poured 250 ml of digestive juice into two containers P and Q. At first they have 15 grams of food, then P was cut into smaller pieces. So cut, this one is uncut. Okay, so over here at first 15 gram, then after 2 hours, right, there's some food left in the container. So this represent what? This represent the undigested food. So what happened to the amount of digested food? Where it probably have been digested, right? That's why it's no longer left in the container. It probably get mixed together with the digestive juices. So how to calculate the amount of food that's being digested? 15 minus 8, 7. This is the digested food. 7 gram. 15 minus 4, 11 gram. So over here, this is the amount of digested food. So in this case, you probably see that 11 has more digested food as compared to 11 has more, right, as compared to 7. So which one will digest faster? Okay, is it the one that cut or uncut? Obviously, it will be the one that is cut. It will digest faster. So here will be for P, here will be Q. Okay, cut will be digest faster. Okay, why in this case? Because you have more surface area in contact with the digestive juices, so you will digest faster. Okay, so what was Juna trying to find out? Okay, so a typical aim statement will look something like this. Okay, to find out if, how, or which the change variable affect the measured variable. So the change variable is really the surface area of the food in contact with the digestive juices, while the measured variable with the mass of the food left in the container. So notice how I came up with this. Okay, this one I just copy directly from here. Mass of the food left in container. So this is your measured variable. So you just have to write it in this manner. You can say to find out if the surface of area of the food in contact with digestive juice affect the mass of food left in the container, or you can say how. Okay, if and how will be more applicable. Which usually is applied when which material is the best or which material is the poorest. So it applies when your change variable is represented by letters or non-numbers. Okay, when it is not a number, then you will use which. Okay, how is usually when your change variable is represented by numbers. Okay, so in this case, surface area can be represented by numbers. That's why you will use how to find how the surface area. So typically, this is actually how the rule of thumb in which one you want to use. Okay, so there's actually another better way to write this. Okay, so basically the mass of the food left in the container is to tell you the rate of digestion. So you can infer it in this way. Okay, to find out how the surface area of the food in contact with digestive juices affect the rate of digestion. This is also acceptable. In fact, this will be one of the better answer. Okay, because what do? You infer actually this. Okay, you infer that the mass of food left from the container is actually trying to tell you the rate of digestion. Okay, between the food into container, whether that's cut or uncut. Okay. In a human digestive system, an organ performs a similar function of cutting the food into smaller pieces. So read carefully. This is not breaking down them. This is not breaking the food into simpler substances. This is not breaking the food into simpler substances, but smaller pieces. Okay, so this is very different. So read carefully. So identify the organ and describe how this function helps digestion. Okay, so the organ should be teeth. Okay, but some of you may think that it is mouth. Okay, the correct answer should be, or the more accurate one should be teeth. But if you write mouth, I think it's fine as well. But the idea, the description behind this, right, is that the teeth inside the mouth helps to do the cutting, just like a knife that's cutting a meat. Okay, so basically the teeth will break down the food into smaller pieces. Okay, linked with this part to increase the surface area of the food in contact with digestive juice, speed up digestion. Okay, so what are the main components? One component, two component, the third component. Okay, break down food into smaller pieces, increase surface area, speed up digestion. Okay, so these are the three key ideas, or at least this is how the teeth will be able to help in digestion. Speed them up by breaking them into smaller pieces. Okay, so next up, okay, this is on plants reproduction. Okay, so over here you got reproductive cells from the male flower. Most likely is hidden in the pollen grain. You got process A go to female flower B, so usually A will be your pollination. Okay, so after your female flowers get the male reproductive cells, it will form fruits and seeds. This is your fertilization. So basically describe B. Okay, describe not state, describe, so you have to put in elaboration over here to fully describe them. So you can say start by saying what is B. B, fertilization. So straight up, so what is fertilization? Male reproductive cells fuse with female reproductive cells. Okay, so the three core ideas: male fuse female. These are the three core ideas between fertilization. Okay, so identify the parts of the flower that will develop into fruits and seeds. So the parts of the flower that become fruit and seed will be your ovary or your ovule. So which is which? Okay, so if you, let's say in exam you forget ovary, okay, you can write them down. Ovary, maybe you can write them at the side. Ovary, ovule. So you take a look. Ovary become fruits or seeds. Okay, ovary has a R, fruits has a R, so R will become R. So most likely your ovary will become your fruits, then your ovule will become your seeds. Okay, E become E. Okay, so over here, in this case, you can use a very quick method by identify the letters within the words to be able to find out which one pair with which one. Okay, so this one no dispute. Ovary become fruits, ovule become seeds. So this one quite straightforward. So now we move on to the next portion. Okay, the diagram shows insect J laying eggs in the ovaries of the flowers of plant K. The young of the insect J feed on the seed of the plant K. That means when the ovule become the seed, right? The insect J, it will hatch, or the eggs of the insect J will hatch out. Okay, into a young which is hidden in the flower. Then somehow they will feed on the seed. So this is the idea of adaptation. Behavioral adaptation. They will always put their young beside near a food source, so that when they hatch, they are very weak, right? They don't have to go very far to hunt for food. The food is just beside them. So this is helping them to find a ready source of food, so that they can feed on it right away when they are hatched. Okay, so insect J help the flower of plant K to carry out process A, which is pollination, as we have described. So when insect J fly near the flower, the petals of the open up completely, okay, exposing the anther, exposing. Okay, so they'll open up. Okay, so why is it a good thing? Why is it an advantage? Good. Okay, to the flower to open up the petals completely. So when you open up the petals completely, what will happen to J? Okay, J is easier for it to get inside the ovary to lay eggs, and indirectly they will touch the anther. The pollen grain will fall onto the fall from the anther into their wings or their body. Then they will transfer it to the stigma. So this will increase the chance of pollination, and you have a higher rate of fertilization. Okay, so this idea is really to increase the rate of pollination and fertilization. So how do you explain this part? Okay, so there will be more space for the insect to reach into the ovary, which is the job of this adult insect J. Okay, you can see want to reach into the ovary to lay eggs. This is the job. Higher chance of pollination and fertilization. Okay, to take place. Okay, you have a high chance of it. Okay, so this is the critical idea. Okay, so let's move on to the second part, D. Before J flies off, it will mark the flower with a smell to prevent other insects from laying there. Okay, so this is, imagine this is flower. Okay, K. Okay, flower. Okay, so when the insect already lay the egg, right? Okay, no other insect will come to this flower. Okay, no other insect will come to this flower egg. That means over here, right, they will not lay eggs over there. Then why is it a good thing to the young of insect J? Good thing to the young of insect J. So you think about this, this is your focus. How can it help? Yeah. Okay, if you're not sure, always go back to this critical idea. Okay, always go back to this. So what is it trying to do? Okay, is it really to cope with extreme temperature? Is it really obtain food, reproduce, escape from predator? So it's a young, right? It probably cannot reproduce. Okay, is it really cooked with extreme temperature? Probably not. Okay, probably you only left with obtained food and predator. So you think about it. Okay, which one is most likely to be the most reasonable answer? Okay, think about this. Ready source of food. Okay, it's already in the part of the question. It has been given as a background information on the seeds of J. So it's most likely this number 2. Okay, so how does it help? Because if there is no other insect come near this, right, there is no chance for that insect to lay eggs there. And then only what? Only the eggs of insect J will be inside, and when they hatch, they will be the only one that have all the food by themselves. So this is a good thing. It's really for them to have food. There's no competition with other insect. So this is how you can write this. Other insect will not come to the flower to lay eggs. Okay, the reason being, this ensure that there's enough food for the young of J when they hatch from the eggs. Or you can say there's no competition for the food of the young of J when they hatch from the eggs with other insect. There's totally no competition with other insect at all because they are the only one in the flower itself. Okay, so next up we talk about 31. Okay, organism S is a slow-moving animal with eye stalk that allow it to see in any direction. Okay, the eye stalk probably can see 360 degrees in all directions. When touched, the eye stalk retracts and is hide in its moist body inside its hard shell. While hiding, the eye stalk still can do the job, still can see what is outside. Okay, so this seems like a adaptation to me that the snails can use, okay, to do something. Okay, and most likely some of you would have probably already seen this or during one of those rainy days where you have this kind of snails by the roadside. Okay, so what characteristics of living thing does organism S shows when its eye tract retract when touched? Retract when touched. So characteristics of living things are in your textbook. There's only a few of them. Okay, so let me list down the more critical one. Okay, so okay, ignore one. One is irrelevant. One is just telling you there's living thing around us. Okay, so one of the characteristics is we need air, food, and water to survive. So this is one of the characteristics. Another characteristic is we can grow, we can respond to changes, we can reproduce. Okay, so these are characteristics of living things. That means living things, if you are living things, you should be able to do this. Okay, so which one is most likely to answer? Okay, retract when touched. It is most likely to be respond to changes. Okay, so when touch is being threatened, right? So I retract my eye stalk so that I keep it keep it within the hard shell, so it's more protected. Okay, so it's this answer. Okay, respond to changes in their environment. Okay, so let's take a look at B. Based on the following, based on the above information, state 2 structural adaptations of organism S that help it to increase its chance of survival. Okay, so 2 structural adaptation. You need to know what are the structural adaptation before you can write, right? So what are the 2? Number 1, hard shell. Number 2 will be retractable eye stalk. So these are the 2 that's being labeled in the diagram. So how do you use it? Okay, so you think about it. We go back to the same idea. Okay, we go back to the same idea. Okay, the hard shell. Think about it. Hard shell, is it to cook with extreme temperature? That doesn't seem so. Obtain food. Hard shell probably cannot help them to obtain food. Probably no. Reproduce, probably no. Okay, most likely is escape from predator. So or receive protection. So how does it do it? Hard shell, right? So by the word hard, probably when predator want to try to bite them, they cannot bite through it. Okay, so it receives protection against your predator. So the hard shell, okay, allow the snails to be protected from its predator because it's hard. The predator probably cannot bite through. So this is a reasonable reasoning using this adaptation alone. Okay, it's a structural adaptation. So the other structural adaptation will be your retractable eye stalk. Okay, and you look in the passage, can see what is outside while hiding in the shell. So what does it tell you? While hiding, you still can see what is around. Okay, you can still look for predator, or you might be able to look for food when there's a need arise. So how can you answer this? You can probably answer it in this way. Okay, retractable eye stalk allow the snails to see its surrounding in all direction. Okay, if you want to add to say that to look out for predator or to look out for prey, both is also fine. You want to add a supplementary elaboration is also fine. Okay, okay, so you can write it in this way: retractable eye stalk allow the snails to see its surrounding in all direction, even when hiding, to look out for predator or prey. Okay, so you can add a supplementary information over here to actually support this. Okay, but this is equally good enough. Okay, so let's all move on to the next part. Organism as live in the garden during dry and hot weather. Okay, so this is a clue already. Dry and hot weather. It hides in the hard shell. Seal is opening. Okay, seal is opening of the shell. Hide in it. Hide inside. Seal is opening during the hot weather. The graph shows the temperature change inside and outside of a shell within a day. Okay, so based on the information given, suggest two reasons why S hide in this hard shell and seal is opening at noon. Okay, so why it choose to do this, not say outside. So at noon, right? You take a look. The temperature over here is way higher. This is way lower. Okay, so why does it want to hide in its hard shell, right? When the temperature is very high, it can helps to reduce the heat gain by the snail, because over here the temperature is rather low if it's hide in the hard shell. So this is an example of, if you think about it, this is an example of what? Coping with physical factor. What the physical factor is? Extreme temperature. The clue is over here. Dry and hot weather is to really cope with extreme temperature. So it cannot be 2, 3, or 4. Okay, so it will be, you can think about it as number 1, hide in its hard shell. This is the first thing. Seal the opening is the second one. Okay, you can think about it, because it's already wrote, right? Hide in its hard shell, seal is opening. So you need to think about these two. Why hide? Because reduce heat gain by the snails from the hotter surrounding during noon. So this will be the first part. Why want to seal the opening? Okay, so this part you have to think very carefully, and you probably cannot find out just on the graph. You need to use the background information. So we go back to this. Okay, you go back to here. What are the information we can use to help us to answer this idea of sealing its opening of a shell? Okay, so you take a look. It hides its moist body inside its hard shell. So it's trying to tell you that it has a moist body. Okay, that means the body has to keep wet. Okay, let me write this down. Moist body. Its body has to keep wet, right? So in this case, you think about it, right? If the snails were to not hide and expose itself during the day when it's very hot, right? What will happen? Its moist body will become very dry. It will become very dry, as there will be a lot more evaporation. So why is sealing it up? It's sealing it up so that it can reduce the exposed surface area of its moist skin in the surrounding, and this can help to slow down evaporation, so the body can keep moist. Okay, because probably this animal needs moist skin to take in oxygen, or to actually help it in its life processes. Okay, that's why it needs to keep its body moist. Without that moist skin, this organism might have died. So in this case, right, how do you write point 2? This part is a more challenging one. So you can write it in this way. Seal is opening of a shell, okay, to reduce the exposed surface area of its moist skin and slow down evaporation. These are just supplementary information. You can just say, okay, seal is opening of a shell to reduce water loss. Okay, because ultimately you want to try to slow down the rate of evaporation, and that's the idea of reducing water loss from its own body. Okay, so the key part is reduce heat gain, reduce water loss. So these are the two critical functions, or two critical core idea behind this adaptation: reduce heat gain, reduce water loss. So indirectly, it's trying to cope with extreme temperature. Okay, in this hot environment, especially during the noon where it's very hot. So one example of this news will look something like this. Some of you might have even seen it after a period of rain. Okay, so this is actually how it looks like. It is quite common in Singapore. Okay, so this is how the snails look like. Okay, retractable eye stalk. Okay, when you touch it, right, it will hide back in the shell, and this is a hard shell for protection. Okay, likewise for this hard shell for protection. Okay, retractable eye stalk. Okay, so this one very common. In fact, during after a rainy day, right, you will see a lot of them out in the footpath, or if you are walking along the Singapore footpath. Okay, so with that, let's go on to number 32. Okay, so Aaron conduct an experiment to find out how the sharpness of a pencil, the change will affect the depth it pierced into a block of plasticine, measured payable. He used two identical pencils with tips of different sharpness. Okay, drop them from the same height above the ground, try to ensure that this is a fair test. Okay, the record his observation is stable. Okay, so not sharp versus sharp. So depth of piercing 0.8. Okay, the sharper one 1.5 in fact is deeper. They also give you additional information, did it stay or did not stay. Okay, so based on this result, state the conclusion. Conclusion always go back to the aim. Okay, always go back to the aim. So you think about it. Okay, sharpness of pencil, how did it pierce? The sharper it is, okay, the sharper it is, the deeper it pierces. Or as the sharpness increases, the depth of piercing increases. So these are the two ways that you can really conclude if you look into the details of the table or of the data presented in the table. This one pretty straightforward. So how do you answer this? You can say as the sharpness of pencil increases, the depth of piercing increases. Pretty straightforward. Or you can put it in this way: the sharper the pencil tip, the deeper it can pierce through the plasticine. Okay, so both ways are fine. So these are just different ways of answering. So how? Okay, now in this case, in this question, right, it's telling you about a mangrove habitat. Okay, where the trees grow on clay soil. Okay, the water level in this habitat will rise and fall during different periods of the day. The seed of mangrove germinate into seedlings while it's still on the tree. Okay, once the seedling can make its own food, it will drop into the soil near the parent plant, grow into a new tree. So this is a situation given. Okay, they show you this. Okay, when it's on the tree, it's already germinated. Okay, so these are seedlings. Okay, already germinated. So these are the key ideas that you need to know. Okay, they are not seeds anymore, they are seedlings. Okay, they are sharp tips. So these sharp tips, right, you realize that it is very close to this experiment. Okay, so they give you an experiment, they ask you the application question. So part A, they give you an experiment that you can learn about it. You learn that if the tip is sharper, it will pierce deeper. So part B, they're asking you how does the mangrove seedlings benefit with a sharper tips? A sharp tip at the end of the roots. So based on error experiment, give a reason why the seedlings have sharp tips at the end of the root. So this is something probably got to do with the piercing, okay, through the clay soil. Okay, so let us take a look into this. Okay, so this is actually a real plant. So it's called it's probably from this thing called red mangrove. Okay, from the family or from the genus called Reproduction. Okay, basically it has this adaptation where seedlings, right, it will germinate into a seedlings, right? Well, the seed will germinate into a seedlings while it's still on the parent plant, and they has pointed sharp tips. Can you see this part? They are very pointed. They are very sharp. Okay, so the sharper it is, the deeper it will pierce into the clay soil. So piercing deeper in the clay soil allowed them to stay in the clay soil, so they can prevent themselves from washing away by the water in this habitat, because the water will rise and fall. So the water current will come in and out. So if they don't pierce deep enough, they will get washed off by the water very easily. So can you see this adaptation is to help them to do what? Help them to perform the function of roots very effectively. The function of roots in this case that is more applicable is to anchor, okay, firmly to the soil. Okay, to the soil or to the mud in this case. Okay, but how does a sharper roots help it to do its job? Okay, anchor more firmly into the soil, so stay into the soil more steadily or more firmly, so that they can reduce their chance of being washed off. So we are using the function of roots to help us to actually answer this question. So these are the key ideas that you probably need to think about before you go into the writing this question. So how do we answer this? Okay, so talk about the situation first. So when the seedling drop into the mud, into the soil or into the clayey soil, as what is being written here, if you want to change this into this, it's also fine. Drop into the clayey soil, the sharp root will dig deeper. So when they dig deeper, they will anchor more firmly. So use the comparative adjective over here. This will help you to firm your answer. Okay, make your answer more strengthened. Okay, so this will reduce reduce their chance of being washing away. It does not prevent them from being washed away, but it reduces their chance. Okay, because no matter how sharp it is, right, if you are not dropped in the correct angle, you may still get washed. Or if you drop it, if you drop it onto the branches or onto the other parts of the other part of the leaf litter found in the mangrove area, you might also get washed off if you because this reduces your chance of anchoring firmly to the soil. So all this it doesn't mean that you have a sharp tip, right? You will always anchor firmly. But if you don't have it, the chances of it being washed off will be much higher. So that's why we will not use the word prevent. We will say reduce. Okay, reduce their chances of being washed away by the water. Okay, being washed away by water. If you want, you can add this in. So the main idea is all here. Okay, so suggest why the seedling may be at a disadvantage. So not a good thing. Not a good thing. Okay, when they grow near the parent plant. Why is it not a good thing if they grow near the parent plant? Okay, because being near to the parent plant, you will compete for resources. What are the possible resources? We go back to this idea. Okay, you will compete for light, mineral salts, water, and space with the parent plant, and this is not a good thing. Okay, so you might grow less well because most of the resources are taken away by the parent plant. So how do you write this? Being near to the parent plant will cause more overcrowding and competition. Okay, for sunlight, water, space, and mineral salts or nutrient. Okay, so some schools still use nutrients. I guess they thought that the word nutrients it does really shows that there's really competition for this. Okay, but usually most schools in these days they will use mineral salts because the textbook has changed to mineral salts. So using mineral salts will be much better as compared to the words nutrient. Okay, because it reflects what has changed in the textbook itself. So the common resources, right, will always be sunlight, water, space, and mineral salts. Not food and water. They don't compete for food. They don't compete for water. The reason why they don't compete for food because they can make their own food. That's why they don't compete for food. The reason why they don't compete for air is always in the surrounding. Even they are very, very close to each other, it doesn't compete for air at all. Okay, they can take in through their stomata. So normally we will not see competition for air. We will also not see as competition for food. Only sunlight, water, space, and mineral salts or nutrients. Okay. So number 33, the graph shows the change in the rate of deforestation on Earth and the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over a period of time. So the word atmosphere just means in the surrounding air. Okay? So in this case, you can just put it in this manner. So you can see that when the deforestation increases, the amount of carbon dioxide also increases. Okay? You can see that these are the two same graphs. It's just that the label they are being named very differently. Okay? So in this case, you have to identify which one is the cause. The cause is most likely this. Deforestation will lead to an increase in the amount of carbon dioxide. This is actually your effect. So in short, this is your change variable. This could be your measure variable if you think about it this way. So based on the graph, describe how the number of trees on Earth affect the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And notice this number of trees versus the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. These are the labels that have been given to you. So as much as possible, try to use this label. Number of trees represent this. Okay, deforestation. So when deforestation increases, do you have more or less trees? Okay, you will have less trees. So you have to read it in a very reverse way or different way. So deforestation increase means there will be less trees on Earth. So over here, it should be as the number of trees on Earth decreases. That means you cut down more trees, the amount of carbon dioxide should have increased. Okay. So this should be the correct way of reading it. Okay. It's not as the number of trees on Earth increase. Because although this one show the line is going up, but in fact, this is telling you deforestation. So in fact, when you're reading it, right, it should be number of trees on Earth actually decreases rather than increases. So you have to read it differently. Okay, don't just take the line as it is. You have to read between the line what the line tell you. In this case, the line tell you deforestation. It means that number of trees becoming lesser and lesser when there's more deforestation. Okay, so another way of answering this, right, it could be you can write it in this manner. Okay, the fewer the trees on Earth, the more carbon dioxide in the air. Okay, this will be a much more simple way of addressing the relationship. Still describe it very, very perfectly, short, sweet, and concise. Okay, but just take note. Don't write it in this manner because some students they like to write it in this manner. They like to love to write it as the number of trees on Earth decrease, the more carbon dioxide in the air. Try because when you use the word decrease, try to put decrease, increase for your measured variable of whatever variable they are describing. Don't put as the number of trees decrease, the more carbon dioxide in the air. It sounds very weird. Okay, if you want to use the comparative adjective, right, use it in the same manner. So this will make it more grammatically more smooth when the person is reading it. Okay, so this should be the correct way. If you use increase, then it should be the following variable that you want to describe should be increase, decrease, or remain the same. Okay, so for number 2, it would be if you write it in as shown in number 2, it should be the measure variable should also be written in how you wrote it in the earlier part of the sentence. So in this case, the fewer the trees on earth, the more carbon dioxide in the air. Okay, so some farmers clear forests by burning trees. Explain how burning tree and loss of forest. So number 1 and number 2 there's 2 parts. Burning tree, loss of forest can lead to global warming. Okay, how when you burn trees and there's less trees can lead to global warming. So let's address this first. So the first point is really talking about the source of carbon dioxide. For this part, for the first part, is talking about the source of carbon dioxide. What does it do to the carbon dioxide when you burn and cut out trees? Then the second part is link carbon dioxide to global warming. Okay, on this portion. So number 1 is you can write it in this manner. So burning of trees produce carbon dioxide as one thing. Loss of tree causes there to be fewer trees for photosynthesis, which in turn leads to less carbon dioxide being taken from the air. So in short, if less carbon dioxide being taken from the air, you have more carbon dioxide in the air. So there will be more carbon dioxide to trap more heat on from the sun on Earth, okay, leading to a rise in Earth temperature, therefore global warming. Okay, rise in Earth temperature means global warming in this case. Okay, so in this case, you have to read it you probably can write it in this manner. So burning produce carbon dioxide, loss of tree, less carbon dioxide being taken in during photosynthesis. So there will be more carbon dioxide, trap more heat from sun on Earth, leading to a rise in Earth temperature. Okay, so dengue fever is a spread through the bites of Aedes mosquito, and only adults can spread dengue fever. Only adults. So scientists has found out that the eggs of the Aedes mosquito hatch faster, okay, and the young grow into adult more quickly at higher temperature. So this is the claim that you might want to use. Okay, this is the claim that you should be using. Okay, explain how global warming means higher temperature will affect the spread of dengue fever. So in this case, how do you actually use the claim to help you? So you can talk about global warming. This will be your cause, right? This is your cause. Then this is your effect, right? This is what you will see. Higher temperature, more dengue fever. So what is the linkage in between? So you can talk about this number 1. As temperature increases due to global warming, this is the cause. I'm trying to explain if the temperature increase in this increasing trend. So what will happen? Higher temperature, mosquito hatch faster. It means that they reproduce faster because their young turn into adult more quickly. It takes less day for the young to become adult. So in the second part, I will put it here. This is the elaboration. Okay. Okay, so this is the second part. Mosquito reproduce faster because they are young, grow into adult more quickly. Okay, so this is the claim that I borrowed from the scientists. Okay, because the scientists at higher temperature, mosquito will hatch faster, they grow into adult more quickly, right? So I borrow their claim, then I try to link it to the spread of dengue fever. As a result, what happened? More adult mosquito spread more dengue. So this is number 4. Okay, number 5 is over here. So these are ways that you can use to actually link the ideas together. Temperature increase due to global warming. Mosquito reproduce faster, grow into adult more quickly. More adult mosquito spread more dengue fever. Okay, so these are the core ideas behind it. Okay, so this is actually a very similar PSLE question. It probably should be 2023. Okay, where they talk about how rising temperature result in the rise in the population of adult mosquito. Okay, so this is one way. Okay, so let's go to question 34. Organism X is a single cell organism that can trap light to make food. Okay, trap light to make food. State the cell part, okay, that allow it to make food. Cell part, okay, in this case. So what are the possible cell part? Nucleus, cell membrane, cytoplasm, cell wall, chloroplast. and the part that would responsible for trapping the sunlight to make food will be your chloroplast. Okay, it will be chloroplast. Okay, not chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is actually the parts inside the chloroplast. So they are talking about a major cell part, right? It should be chloroplast instead of chlorophyll. Okay, chloroplast will be the more accurate one rather than as compared to chlorophyll. Okay, so Xiaoming placed equal volume of liquid R containing some X into 3 container A, B, C. He placed the container at different distance away from the light source. Okay, so they are at different distance. Okay, and liquid R changed according to the amount of carbon dioxide presence in the the container itself that is trapped within X, and they are exposed to light. And you know that X can carry out photosynthesis because they already tell you that they trap light to make food. So X can do photosynthesis when you give it light. Okay, with light it can do photosynthesis. So if they can do photosynthesis, means they will have to take in carbon dioxide. Okay, so over here each number represents different colors. The color of liquid R in setup B is 4. So this is 4, right? So what will be the number for C and A? So in this case, it represents the one in the middle. Okay, then they ask you what could A and C be. So you think about it. Okay, as compared to B, right? A has more light, so it can photosynthesize faster. So it will be able to take in more carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, right? So there will be less dissolved carbon dioxide in the liquid, right? So likewise for C, right? Because it's further, it will have further away from the light source, it will have less light. So if we go by the same reasoning, less light, the rate of photosynthesis become lower, take in less carbon dioxide, there should be more dissolved carbon dioxide in the container, more, at least more than B. Okay, correct, in this case. So if you think about it, okay, therefore if A is less than B, right, so it will be 1, 2 or 3 because it's lesser than B. You can see there's the increasing in the amount of carbon dioxide. That means this one have most carbon dioxide, this one have the least carbon dioxide, and B is in the middle. So if A is less than B, it must be either 1, 2 or 3. Any of these answer will be fine because you don't know how much the rate of photosynthesis is. So you don't know how much the rate of photosynthesis is, you also don't know how much carbon dioxide has been taken in, but you only one thing that you know is that photosynthesize faster than B, so it will take in more carbon dioxide than B, so there will be less dissolved carbon dioxide in the liquid as compared to B. This is the only thing that you can know. So any of this number 1, 2, 3 will be fine. Therefore, container C will be 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it should be 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7. Okay, not 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7. Okay, from here onwards. Okay, so suggest a reason that could result in Xiaoming obtaining inaccurate color. Okay, change in the liquid R in all 3 setup. What it means, right, in this case, inaccurate color, that means, right, maybe the setup for B, right, maybe the actual answer, right, should be 3, but somehow he get 4. So what could have led to this inaccuracy? Okay, that means there must be something in this setup that was not kept constant. Okay, that led to the amount of carbon dioxide being different. So think about it. If we go back to the idea, right, this is about photosynthesis. So there must be something that could have changed, that could have affected the rate of photosynthesis such that the person, right, measuring the carbon dioxide, right, does not reflect the actual accurate value. Okay, so you can think about factor affecting ROP. Okay, so what are the factors that will affect rate of photosynthesis? You have light, you have temperature, you have amount of dissolved carbon dioxide originally in the container that could also be affecting, okay, the measurement itself. And last but not least, you will have X, because they say some. They never say whether they are equal in A, B, C, because some might be A might have more than B, If A has more than B, then A might have photosynthesized even a bit more than B, then it might have taken in a lot more carbon dioxide, okay, as compared to B. Okay? So what could be a possible answer? Okay, you think about it. Can light be? Light cannot be accepted because light is a change variable. You are testing for light, so light should be the one that is changing. Okay, so it cannot be the answer that will affect the inaccuracy of the color change in liquid R. So you cannot accept light. So what are some possible examples? Okay, the amount of dissolved carbon dioxide in the container may not be the same at the first instant. So therefore, this might lead to inaccuracy in the measurement. That is possible, correct? Okay, the amount of dissolved carbon dioxide could be different at the start. Okay, so this is possible. So the temperature might be different at the start. So if they are exposed to different temperature, the organism might photosynthesize very differently. This might also lead to inaccuracy in the color detected. So last but not least is the amount of X. Okay, because they are probably this X, right, is mixed together with water. So this person just scoop up the water and the amount of X in each container may have been different. And this could also affect the rate of photosynthesis and lead to inaccurate color change. Okay, so all these are actually possible reason that could lead to a different different result obtained by Xiaoming, okay, due to the changes in the color. So how do you answer this? You can say the amount of dissolved carbon dioxide could be different in all three setups. In all three setups could be different. Okay, or you can say temperature could be different, organism X could be different, but you cannot say light. Light is already different. Okay, that is something that they're testing. Okay, so all these trees are just paired. Either one of these can be used as an answer. Okay, so this part pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's go to 35. Okay, Michelle brought a tub of ice cream from the supermarket. When she reached home, she placed all the tub of the ice cream into the freezer. So when she do this, right, the temperature, okay, will go down it will go down near to the temperature of the freezer, and normally freezer is negative. That's why it's able to freeze the water into ice. Okay, so temperature is negative, okay, or very low. Okay, the next day she took out the tub of ice cream from the freezer. She noticed a thin layer of white solid formed on the outer surface here. Okay, let me use blue color over here. So then they ask you, okay, explain how the white solid is formed. Okay, so basically, right, for the white solid to form, right, in this case, you probably know that it is your warm water vapor in the air, in the surrounding air, actually touches this surface, start to lose heat, then start to condense into your water droplets first. Water droplets. Then what happened to your water droplets? Your water droplets, because it's still touching this surface, right, it lose heat again. Lose heat again, and this time round, okay, lose heat again, and this time round froze into your white solid. So there's actually two processes happening over here. The first one is condensation. The second one is freezing. Freezing and condensation. So there's two parts. Okay. So how do you write this part? So first up, talk about the condensation first. After the condensation, you slowly rewrite it into the freezing part. So how can you write this? So you can say about warm water vapor in the surrounding air. So first part, you have to talk about the source of water vapor. Where is it come from? Okay, where is the source of the warm water vapor? It loses heat to the cooler surface of the ice cream. They did not lose heat to the ice cream, not the ice cream. The ice cream is inside the cup. They lose heat to the cooler surface of the ice cream tub. Okay, so can you see that there's a clue over here? So this is the clue that you probably need to use. A cooler surface of the ice cream tub. Okay, so what happened? It will condense into your water droplets. So first up over here, this is your condensation, straight away done. Okay, so then you can add on, which then lose heat and flows into your white solid ice, seen as your white solid. Okay, you can wrap up the whole thing so that it can link up very nicely to this part. Okay, so this is actually the second part, or the second portion. Okay, condensation followed by freezing. Okay, at least for this case. So what are common mistakes? Common mistakes that people usually do, right, when they are writing this question, they talk about lose heat to the ice cream tub. No, they did not lose heat to the ice cream tub. They lose heat to the cooler surface of the ice cream tub. It's a surface that we're talking about. This part. So the idea of the cooler surface must be brought out. Cooler surface. So this usually people miss out this part. The second mistake, right, is usually people when they write condensed into water droplets seen as white solid. So they are trying to say what? They are trying to say the water droplets is white solid. So straight away wrong. Why wrong? Because water droplet is in a liquid state. It is not solid. So this one confirm wrong. Straight away wrong. So this part you have to continue. You have to continue write this part. Lose heat and flows into white solid. So you have to add that part in. Then third part is warm water vapor from the freezer. You really say that it's freezer. Freezer usually the air is very the temperature of the air inside is very low. It cannot be your source of your warm water vapor. It will never be. And the story behind this is that the person already take out the tub of the ice cream out from the freezer. Out from the freezer already. So it's no longer the question is no longer talking about the freezer. The freezer is there to tell you that the temperature of the ice cream tub become very low, such that it could be at negative. So that it is a condition where it will allow the water droplets to freeze into solid ice that can be seen as white solid. So these are the 3 common mistakes that usually people do when they're writing this, and I've seen this quite a few times already. So question number 36 is about heat. So basically we have Miss Tan use a metal cube with 4 different surfaces to investigate how well heat can flow from the cube to the surrounding. So basically they're trying to say the heat, the cube is being heated up, and the heat will flow into the surrounding. In this case, through all the 4 different surfaces, through all 4 different surfaces, and you have a heat sensor that's recording the amount of heat given out by all these 4 surfaces. So you probably will have 4 heat sensor in this case. So and she also said that she keep a thick rubber mat at the bottom, as well as keep them at a fixed distance away from all the 4 sides. So these are things that she's trying to ensure. These are things that she has done to ensure a fair test. So she filled the whole cube with boiling water. So over here, this is boiling water, filled with boiling water. So there's a lot of heat in the metal cube that is losing to the 4 different surfaces. So after 1 minute, the heat sensor will use to measure the amount of heat given off from the sides of the metal cube. Give a reason why the metal cube have to be placed on the thick rubber mat. So the idea of this, right, is that, right, the heat, right, will not only lose from the 4 different sides, they also lose heat from upper and bottom. So upper is hard to control because this is a place where you start to put in the boiling water, but below you can kind of control it. You can put rubber mat. Why do you want to put a rubber mat? Because in this case, your rubber mat is a poor conductor of heat, PCOH. So it will try to do what? Slow down heat loss from the metal cube or from the boiling water in the metal cube to the surrounding. And then this is why they want to do this, so that it ensures that most of the heat can be lost through all the 4 different surfaces, and ensure that the reading taken up by the heat sensor will be more accurate in this case. So this is actually more of an accuracy control or experiment design for this experiment, so that you can ensure that you can capture the amount of heat given out by each surfaces more accurately, because there's less heat loss through the rubber mat. There's less heat lost through the bottom of lost through the rubber mat that's placed at the bottom of the metal cube. So you can say something like this. It's a poor conductor of heat. Slow down heat loss from the metal cube to the surrounding, so a more accurate reading of the amount of heat can be made after 1 minute through all the 4 sides. So suggest why the amount of heat will only measure after 1 minute. After filling the cube with boiling water. So why you don't take it straight away? So imagine if you take it straight away, texture and texture and color, right? So imagine you take it straight away. So you got dull, black, and silver. So what happens if you take it straight away at maybe at the first second? So the amount of heat that you recorded from the sensor, right, may not have much differences. So maybe like 1 or 1. But if you take it after 1 minute, you will see a drastic differences at 1 minute. So what was the result given? 20.6 and 6.2. So when you keep it for a much longer time, right, it allowed time for the surfaces to gain heat, and then the result that show it to you, right, it can show you a result that has a greater difference, so that you can compare them more accurately. So it's to allow you to compare, but before you can compare them, you need to let the different surfaces to gain heat to a certain extent first before you take the reading. This is really for accuracy, at least for this part. If you don't do it, then everything will be 1, then everything might be 1, and you can't help whether the dull or the dull shiny surface, which one allow more heat to be lost through these surfaces. So the idea is to allow the different surfaces to gain heat to some extent first before you take the reading, so that you can compare them accurately. So we go on to this part. The amount of heat given out by 4 surfaces is being shown over here. Dull, dull, black, silver, shiny, shiny, black, silver. Amount of heat is shown by here using the heat sensor. So she concluded that dark surface will give out most heat. So if you want to compare dark surface, right, that means your setup, right, must have 1 dark, 1 shiny, to be able to make this conclusion. That means, right, which are the 2 surfaces? You must choose the 2 surfaces where it is both dull or it is both shiny. So that means this one is one answer, this one is second answer. So it must be one set. So what I mean is that the first answer can be this: dull black, dull silver. It cannot be dull black, shiny black. It must be dull black, dull silver, or shiny black, shiny silver, because with the same with the texture being fixed at dull, right, then you can compare if the color did indeed make any differences in the amount of heat given out by these surfaces through their color only. So in this case, you can see there's a major difference. If the texture is kept at dull, the black color actually give out more heat, as compared to silver, which give out less heat. So these are the 2 surfaces she would have used to be able to make that conclusion. So astronaut wear spacesuit while working in space. So in space, right, the temperature is very, very low. So your body temperature, right, will probably be maintained at 37 degrees Celsius. So this is a human normal body temperature. Most of our human will keep pace at this temperature. So what does it mean? If I throw you in space today, right, you will constantly be losing heat to the surrounding. Constantly be losing heat, because the space is actually a very cold place. The temperature is pretty low, so you constantly lose heat. So based on the result, right, which texture and color, right, should this person use to make sure that the astronaut can keep warm in the space? So this is a typical choice evidence reasoning question. So which one will you choose? Of course you will choose the one with the lowest amount of heat given off. So it will be shiny and silver. Shiny and silver. Shiny silver. So the evidence is this part. It give out the least amount of heat. That means, right, in this case, if the person were to wear a shiny silver suit, right, the person will give out less heat as compared to a person that is wearing a dull black surface. That means a lot of heat will be lost if the person wear a dull black surface. That means he would have constantly be losing a lot more heat. And then that is not good, because in this case you need to keep the astronaut warm in the space. What you want is to try different method to slow down the rate of heat loss. So you should be choosing the lowest number instead of the highest number. So the reasoning must be applied to this astronaut that is working inside the space. So in this case, you could write out in this manner: shiny surface material will slow down heat loss from the astronaut to the cold surrounding in the space. So in this case, this will help to keep them for as long as possible. When they are walking out in the space station. So in this case, right, would you be to put it on a side track? You will not equate these as poor conductor of heat. You will not say that this is a poor conductor of heat. So let me write this. This is wrong. Okay, you will not equate this as poor conductor of heat. So although we say that the shiny material will slow down heat loss, but in this case we will not say this because this only apply to materials they themselves. Okay, materials being either being metal or versus wood. Okay, now we are talking about texture and color. We are essentially saying that the material is the same, but they have different color, different texture. Okay, so in this case, we cannot say texture or different texture is a poor conductor of heat. Okay, color and texture we cannot equate to poor conductor of heat. Poor conductor of heat only apply to material alone. Okay, most of the time, material alone. Okay, for example, if you are given material A, B, C, then you can say, material A is a poor conductor of heat, but you cannot say shiny a shiny material is a poor conductor of heat because that is the color itself. Color they themselves, they cannot be poor conductor of heat. Only material can be a poor conductor of heat. So this part is the key factor. That's why we in this answer we don't say it's a poor conductor of heat. We just say slow down heat loss from the person to the surrounding. Good enough, sufficient. Okay, so in this case 37. Okay, so we have Letitia set up two separate circuits A and B as shown. She wanted the light bulb to light up when the switch is closed. All the battery and light bulb were in all working condition. So you take a look at this. You got two circuit A versus B, and you have the wires around iron rod. So you have subject of interest, which is the iron rod. It is something that you are interested in. Then you also got the rod that is fixed to the spring. So you got iron rod versus rod that is fixed to the spring. You got metal contact endpoint, and you got circuit A, circuit B. So these are the words in the diagram that you might want to use when you are constructing your explanation. So Letitia fixed a wrong rod to the spring. Okay, a wrong rod. So when she closed the switch at B, so when she closed it, okay, the bulb in A did not light up. So let's take a look at how the circuit works first. So if the person closed the switch, right? So person closed the switch, so electricity will flow through the iron rod. So the iron rod will somehow become a electromagnet. Okay, when it become electromagnet, right? By right, it should have attract this downwards, and then somehow the metal contact will touch each other. Then electricity will start to flow through this bulb because there is there's a battery over here. So electricity will most likely flow through this way. Okay, if they are touching, then they will come back here. Okay, so this is actually how the whole thing works. So when they say this is a wrong rod, it means that the metal rod is not attracted to the electromagnet. Not attracted, most likely this rod is a non-magnetic material, and it might also be that it cannot conduct electricity. Okay, so these are the two possible reasons. So then they say, hey, state the properties. Okay, notice this is plural, so that means how many property? You probably need a minimum of two property. Okay, two property of the rod fixed to the spring for the above setup to work. So you have all these property. You have good conductor of heat, conductor of electricity, material, non-magnetic material, strong, inflexible, waterproof, and zinc. These are properties. Okay, but does it mean that we write everything? No, we only write the one that we want it for the setup to work. Okay, so we already identify. Okay, the rod might be non-magnetic material, it cannot conduct electricity. So in order for this rod to work, for the bulb to light up, we must choose number one, conductor of electricity. Number two, a magnetic material. So these are the two answers. Conductor of electricity, magnetic material must be the correct property applied to the rod that's fixed to the spring for the whole circuit A to work. Okay, without these two property, the light bulb will not light up because the circuit will always remain open because the metal contact will never touch each other. Okay, so in order for them to touch each other, we must make sure that there's attraction. So in this case, after correcting the mistakes, that means after making sure that the rod is a magnetic material, can conduct electricity, how does the light bulb light up? So your main character is the light bulb. So at the end, when you're explaining this part, right, you need to make sure that you need to talk about this. You need to talk about this. Talk about light bulb. Okay, without talking about light bulb, you are not answering the question. So in this case, you can talk about a situation. The situation in this case will be when the switch is closed. Okay, when the switch B is closed, this part. Okay, when the switch B is closed, so what happened? Electricity can flow through circuit B, right? So this part, electricity flow through circuit B. Okay, if I'm a closed circuit, electricity can flow through circuit B. Okay, maybe I add this in circuit B, comma. So when electricity flow through circuit B, right? You can talk about the iron rod already. So the first type event will be the outcome is that iron rod become electromagnet. This thing become attracted. Metal contact, touch each other, form a closed circuit in circuit A, and after that, light bulb light up. So these are the 4 key ideas behind how the circuit would have worked. So you can talk about this in this manner. So the iron rod become an electromagnet, attract the rods downwards, okay, causing both contact to touch each other. Circuit A become closed. When they become closed, light bulb light up. So pretty straightforward. Okay, so these are the point 1 to 4. In this case, 1 to 4. Okay, for at least for this part. Okay, 1 to 4. Okay, so the teacher observed that the light bulb lit up dimly. So that means there is less electricity flowing. Less electricity. Okay, so suggest 1 changes to make the light bulb brighter. So if you know that it's dimmer, and that's the idea of less electricity flowing through, right? Then you make sure that there is more electricity flowing. Then you will get a brighter light bulb. Okay, so what you can do? What you can do? Okay, most of the time people will just say, add more batteries. Yeah, add more batteries. Okay, add more batteries is the one thing that you can do to make sure that the light bulb become brighter, because there will be more electricity flowing through the light bulb. But what is wrong with this answer? Okay, what is wrong? You can see, you say add more battery. Is it for A or B? Okay, so when you say add more battery, is too vague. Okay, I don't know, is it for circuit A or for circuit B? I really don't know. Okay, so you need to tell me that whether is it circuit A or circuit B. So a more specific answer, it should be add more battery to circuit A. Okay, so this should be the correct answer. Okay, add more battery to circuit A. Add more battery to circuit A. This should be the correct answer. Okay, not just add more battery, but add more battery to circuit A. Okay, so now we'll be doing to question number 38. So this is on forces. Okay, so over here, Ron made a catapult to launch the ball so that the ball will land in the box as shown. Okay, he launched the ball in the room without wing. Okay, so this is a key part. Okay, so he observed the path of the ball from X to Y. Okay, from X to Y is flowing into this. Is in this direction. So you can observe, how can Ron tell that along that path of the ball there is a force acting on it? Okay, so this question you have to really carefully. How can he tell that there's a force? It's not asking you what type of force is acting on the ball. It's not asking you there's gravitational force. It's asking you, how do you know there's gravitational force? Okay, it's asking for an observation. Okay, so in this case you can think about the effect of the forces. Okay, if there is no gravity acting on the ball will probably be in this direction. The ball will probably in this direction, right? It will not change the direction, right? It will always be in this direction. Okay, so think about the effect of forces. So what does the gravitational force do? Okay, the gravitational force pull the ball down, right? So such that at some point it will change direction and fall into the box over here. So you can use effect of forces to actually explain this part. So you can talk about this. The ball changed direction in the air and was pulled down into the box. This will be a pretty good and solid answer to show that you know that there's a force because the ball changed direction. Changing direction is an effect of forces. Okay, so you are using effect of forces to tell there is a forces acting on the ball. Okay, so even though you can't literally see the gravity pulling it down, but you know that it is acting on it because of the change direction. Okay, so that's for part A. So Ron launched the ball using the catapult 3 times before the ball land into the box. How come every time the ball move, the distance moved by the ball is different? Okay, so maybe for the first time he could have land here, then second time land here, or third time could land here, very near to the box. But how come every time different? Okay, think about it. Because over here there's a spring. There's a spring, right? He probably do what? There's a human over here. There's a human pulling the catapult behind, and the compression on the spring every time might have been different. Maybe for the first time it was compressed until here, second time it will compress until here, third time maybe it will compress until here. So the amount of compression is different. So if the amount of compression is different, the amount of elastic spring force acting on the ball will be different. Therefore, they will travel different distance. Okay, so basically, right, in this part, right, he did not keep the strength used to compress the spring to be the same. So every time the result is very much different. Okay, so in this case, you can talk about either one of these answer. Okay, the amount of compression on the spring is different. The amount of strength used to compress the spring is the amount of strength used to compress the spring is different. Okay, either of these will be fine. Either of these will be good enough. Okay, so in this case, you take a good look at this. That means they tell you that the amount of compression, right, is not fixed every time when he launched the ball. And this will be a very critical information for you to answer part C. So let's take a look at this. Okay, Ron used the setup below to study the three types of spring A, B, and C. So this is the total length of the spring. So he probably have put the object, and then the object would have compressed it, right? So he placed the object of different masses on each spring and measure the length of the spring, the total length of the spring. So you can see all of them went down, right? So this is in fact telling you compression. The spring is being compressed, right? So A, B, and C, they are very compressed very differently. So if I were to draw one line across here, so we can kind of find out the amount of compression on the spring. They are very different. So which spring is the most suitable to be used in the catapult? Okay, for it to travel the longest distance. So there's two ways to answer this, and the answer can be quite different. Because of the nature that the question did not fix the amount of compression. Okay, that the person can the person can use to compress the spring on this catapult. So in this case, right, if you think about it, if you want the ball to go as far as possible, you have compressed the spring all the way to the maximum. And assuming that this guy has no limit on his strength, he will have choose the stiffest spring. In this case, but in this case, if we think about it, okay, if we think about it and we make the first assumption is that assuming that amount of strength used to compress the spring is limited. Okay, this should be limited. Okay, this should be limited. Okay, let me just adjust it. Okay. That means the amount of strength used to compress the spring is limited, right? Then you probably would have choose P. Okay, because over here B, right, is the spring that you can compress the. If let's say I fix this, I fix this over here, right? You will see that A and B, because A and B they have the same length, C they have different length. The length is different. The starting point is different. So B you can compress until here, while A you can compress until here. So let's take it as red color A, B. But for C, this is the amount of compression that you can have on the spring. Amount of compression you can have on the spring. So which one compress the most? Okay, B compress the most, and because B compress the most, it will have exert the a most elastic spring force on the object for it to be pushed the furthest. So this is actually probably the school answer. Okay, it's an easy way out. Okay, so spring B, because spring B is compressed the most, it allowed the most compression. So when compressed to the same extent, assuming that you can compress to the same extent means you can compress to here to this amount. Okay, to this amount when you use it on the catapult. Spring B will has the most elastic spring force to exert on the object, which causes it to be pushed the furthest. Okay, no doubt if it is being compressed the most. But in this case, right, it seems that if you read the previous part, it seems that the amount of strength is unlimited, or at least in part B, it tells us that the amount of strength, it seems to be unlimited. That means the person, right, that is compressing, right, the spring, right, probably can choose to compress it to the maximum extent if he wish to, right? Therefore, that's why the ball always travels very differently, right? Then in this case, if that assumption to be true, right, then I will not choose spring B anymore, because the assumption is that the amount of strength used to compress the spring is unlimited. That means I can go to the maximum extent. So now you take a look in the answer in blue. I'm gonna reinterpret the diagram. Okay, the red color one is that because the amount of strength used to compress the spring is limited, right? So I will choose the one with the most compression, because the one with the most compression will allow the spring to be compressed the most, to exert the most elastic swing force, to launch the ball furthest. But now I'm saying that if it's unlimited, I'm going to use it in blue color, and this is how I'm going to do it. Okay, so if it's unlimited, I will choose A. Okay, so this is actually why I choose A. Okay, because for the same amount of for the same mass, same mass. Okay, A is harder to compress. A is harder to compress, right? As compared to B, right? Okay, that means A over here is stiffer. Okay, as compared to B. So if you manage to compress A to the same extent as B, A will have more elastic spring force. Because it is much stiffer, and you will need more strength to compress to the same extent. Therefore, when it's allowed to return back to its original length, it will push even harder. Okay, so that is for the stiffer spring. So now we compare A and B, right? This is how you compare, because A is much stiffer than B if you are comparing with the same starting length. So how do we compare A and C? Okay, why do we choose A, right? Is because when you take a look at A, this is the stiffness of the spring. If I were to draw a line, and if I were to draw this line and match, right, you realize the stiffness of spring, they are more or less the same, because the line that is going down, it is the same. So we can say that it's the same stiffness. Okay, same stiffness, right? For A and C. Can you see this part? A and C, they have the same stiffness because the line that is going down is very much similar. Okay, as for B, right, it is way more elastic, because if I were to draw the same line down, and I were to bring it, you see the line, they are very different. Okay, so this is how the line look like for B. This is how the line look like for A and C. So A and C has the same stiffness, or more or less the same, but because C, right, is shorter, the amount of compression that you can get is much limited. Okay, even though they have the same stiffness. Okay, maybe I draw it here, the spring, same stiffness. Okay, but this is C. Okay, this is A, this is C. C has a shorter length, right? So if I were to manage to compress it down all the way, and C, if I were to manage to compress it down all the way, this is the amount of compression I can get for A, because the original length is higher. So I will have more elastic swing force as compared to C, even though they are the same stiffness. So this is what this part is more or less trying to tell us. Is that even though A and C have the same stiffness, but A having a longer spring, if you were to compress them to the maximum extent, A will still have the more elastic spring force acting on the object, because the length that it wants to go back to its original length is much greater in length. Okay? And you will need more force to compress it all the way down to the minimum length. Okay? So that's why for A, it is A and C, they are the same stiffness. A would have more elastic spring force, okay, as compared to C if they are compressed all the way down to the maximum extent. Okay? If they are. Okay? So in this case, right, the one in the blue color is much harder to understand, but that should be the correct answer. Okay, if you go by the school answer, then it will be B lah. Okay, because it compress the most. But the more accurate answer is that because the strength used to compress the spring is really unlimited. Okay, based on the answer in part B, right? Then this should be how it should be. It should have been answered. Okay, so spring A, the evidence is that for the same mass in the graph, I'm explaining from the graph. Okay, from the same mass, see the green color line over here. A compressed the least as compared to B means A is stiffer than B, and A has a longer original length to be compressed to the greater extent as compared to C, even though they have the same stiffness. Okay, so that means that if they are compressed to the maximum extent, A will exert A would have exerted more elastic spring force onto the object as compared to C. So the reasoning, if I were to compare back to the forces, okay, when compressed to its fullest extent, A will have the most elastic spring force to be exerted on the object, which causes it to push it the furthest. If I were to use this reasoning, okay, this set of evidence will apply to this choice. Okay, if your chosen answer is A. Okay, but if you choose B, right, then this should be your reasoning. This should be your reasoning. B is B is compressed the most. Okay, so and since the question asks you to talk about in terms of forces, right, then you should probably compare the elastic spring force. But if today the answer asks you to compare about energy, right, A, and I were to use A, right, then I will have written it in this way. Okay, so when the catapult is released, the elastic potential energy stored in the compressed spring is converted to kinetic energy of the ball. Correct? So because A is the stiffest and it stores the most elastic potential energy at its maximum compression, if it's allowed to be compressed at the maximum, this greater amount of elastic spring force, elastic potential energy is converted to greater kinetic energy of the ball, resulted in higher launch speed and allow it to travel the greatest distance. So this will be how it should be framed, okay, if you were to answer it in terms of forces or in terms of energy. Okay, for this part, maybe this question isn't probably the setup of this question did not thought about this part, because the part B and part C should have linked together. Okay, because from part B onwards, I can tell that the person has more or less unlimited strength when it's compressing the catapult and could have compressed to the maximum extent. So in this case, this is why I choose A, because A is the stiffest and it has a longer length. So the idea is that it is stiffer and it has a longer length. That's why I choose A, because if I push it out to the maximum extent, it will exert the most elastic swing force as compared to B and C. Okay, so this is the main idea behind the reasoning. But of course, B is correct if you were to use this piece of evidence. Okay, in this case. So this is perhaps probably one of the tougher question in this question, because it really needs you to look at the graph very deeply, okay, and really look at how the compression is like, okay, based on each spring. Okay, so with that, let's move on to question number 39. So the question number 39 is on energy. So over here, the diagram shows a water feature at playground P. So basically, you got playground P, you have a container of water allowed to rotate about a pole, so it will just drop down, right? So you have a metal pipe to pump in water. So the container is tilted slightly forward to allow the water to rotate about a pole attached to it. So the metal pipe fills the container with water. Then when it's filled to the brim, the container will tilt forward and then the water will just fall out. Okay, basically it's just a container filled with water. When it's fully filled, it will just fall and then the water will just splash around it. So what is the energy of the water in the container? So it is above ground. Perhaps we are just talking about the water in the container not moving at all. GPE, gravitational potential energy. Energy of the falling water. Okay, the word falling gives you the idea of moving, so it should be kinetic energy. So the diagram below shows a similar water feature at playground Q. Okay, she noted that the container at playground Q was much smaller than that at playground P. It also contained less water. Okay, so it's trying to tell you that this one got less mass, less water, less mass. So over here, so which container, the one at P or Q, would result in the greater impact when the water land on the ground? Explain your answer in terms of energy conversion. So the choice will be pretty clear. The choice you will want to choose the one with more water. P. Why? Because P at the same height above ground, which is 5 meters. P store more water, it has more mass than Q. So when you have more mass than Q, you think about it this way. How do you reason it out? You always go back to this. So if you have more water, means you have more GPE. More GPE of the water in the container can be converted to more kinetic energy of the falling water, causing a greater impact. So you can actually use this box to help you to kind of craft out your answer over here below. So this is something that I would have, right? So the water in container P possessed more GPE, which was then converted to more KE of the falling water to cause a greater impact. Good enough for this part. 2 mark. Usually this is a good answer. So the idea is talking about mass, more GPE, more KE. But of course the word converted must be there, because it's a change. The energy has changed form. Using the same container or same volume of water suggests a change to increase the impact of the water landing on the ground at playground Q. So what can you do to make sure that with the same amount of water, how can you make sure that there's more impact? You try to play with the GPE again. If you cannot change the mass, you cannot change mass, you can change another thing. You can change the height of water above ground. So when you change the height of the water above ground, the water at a higher height will have more GPE to begin with, then you can convert to more KE, then you have a greater impact again. So this part, we go back to this part. So this is just a suggestion. Don't have to explain about the energy conversion again. So raise the height of the container to more than 5 meters above ground. Okay, this part you have to be very clear. We are not talking about the height of the container. We are not talking about this height. We are not talking about this height. We are talking about the height of the container above ground. So this part, you have to be very careful about it. We are talking about this. This is what we are concerned. Okay, not this. Okay, not the height of the container, but the height of the container above ground. So this part must be included, although it may seem irrelevant, but it is very relevant. Okay, so this part is important. Okay, without this part, it seems that you are trying to say making the container making the height of the container to greater than 5 meters. You're talking about this, but we are actually talking about this over here. Okay, in terms of forces, right? Okay, give a reason why a pump is needed to move the water up the metal pipe. Okay, you're moving something up. Okay, what kind of forces are you going against? Okay, you are going against the pull of gravity. Okay, the gravity will always pull the water down to a lower height. That's why most of the water, they will eventually fall lower and lower. So if you want to move the water up, okay, you are going against the pull of gravity. You need to put in effort to do that, and for that you need to use a pump. The pump will allow you to move the water up against the pull of gravity. Okay, so the water is going against the pull of gravity. That's why a pump is needed. Okay, at least for this case. So this will be the core idea. Okay, the water is moving against the pull of gravity as you are moving upwards. Okay, so this is more on forces as well as energy. So let's move on to this part. Okay, this is actually more about reading graph. Okay, reading graph and obtaining information from graph. Okay, obtaining information from graph. So Ahmad used the following setup to compare two material, A versus B. So you take a look at this setup. This setup got a wooden pole, then you have a clamp. Then originally, this is how the material has been laid. So without the mass hanging on it, right, the original distance over here should be more or less 0 cm. More or less 0 cm, right? So it should not have been slacked by the masses, okay, or should not have been pulled by the masses. Okay, so basically the procedure is that originally you have you have this over here. Okay, originally you have this over here. Okay, very straight. The distance is 0, so you add a mass of 50 grams to material A, then you measure D, then you repeat step 1 until 500 grams is reached, then you repeat material B with the same thickness. Okay, trying to ensure that this is a fair test. Only the material is changed, the thickness remains the same. Okay, so these are the results being recorded. Okay, so this is a very nice graph from 0 until 500. So Ahmad did not plot the graph at the start. So usually you will start from the start from here, right? Somewhere here or somewhere here, depending on where is the distance D. Okay, so if Ahmad indeed carried out a fair test, set the distance D before any masses was added, okay, to material A. If he indeed carried out a fair test, right, the actual distance D would have looked like this. Would have looked like this. Okay, all of them would have started from 0. Okay, that means, right, this part over here, both material, they are very, very flat. There's no slack at all. Okay, they are across, they are not slack at all. So the distance over here should be 0 cm. It is indeed a fair test. Okay, so over here it should be 0 cm. Remember, units, don't just write 0 cm. Okay, 0 cm is the correct answer. Okay, don't forget about the units. Okay, so state the masses added when D is the same for both material A and B. Okay, so how do we actually do this? Okay, actually, the only information you can get it from the graph, right, is when B and A intersect each other. Okay, intersect each other. That means they cross the path of each other. Okay, this is it when they cross the path of each other. Okay, at 2.5. Okay, or at the distance Z is at 2.5 when both of them are hanged with 250 grams of material. Okay, that means when you hang 250 grams of material, A and B, they are the same. The distance D, they are the same at 2.5 cm. Okay, this is actually what they're asking you to read. Okay, where they intersect with each other, where they meet each other. Okay, so this is the part that you should be looking for. So this should be 250 grams. Okay, so they're asking for masses, right? 250 grams. So suggest why there's no result. Okay, for material B beyond 350 grams. Okay, so how come there's no result? Okay, no result means over here, what happened over here, this part, right, is that he cannot measure D anymore when he added 350 grams. When he add 350 grams, he cannot, or when he measure beyond 350 grams, he cannot measure anymore D anymore. Because why? It probably have become like this. It has broke into half. As mentioned, the thing broke or snapped into half, right? That means beyond 350 grams, there is no more results. So that's why you cannot get any more results after 350. So how do you answer this part? You can just say the material B broke or snapped beyond 350 grams. Okay, so for now we are done with this paper. I'm going to start from the front and going to stop at different junction for you to take a look at the whole paper. Okay, so this is the first part. Question 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40.